Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have the team lineups, and let's get straight into it. We've got the Avengers at first place by quite a large margin here. We have Gucci, Tai 23, Crying, and Kamel. For progression, we do have their Atlas strategy put together. They are fully sustaining all of their red tier maps here. All tiers 10 through 15, they are within depth 255. We have found out that Tai 23 has made his profile public now. So we do know what he's doing. Gucci still being the absolute boss killer delve machine, pushing down to that depth 255 with Stormbrand. And so Tai 23, as we already knew, was a Curse Aura support bot, but now his build's a little interesting, so we'll be going over that shortly. Again, we have All Crying as the carry with Winter Orb on that Carcass Jack, and Kamel is always doing that Chaos Recipe, and now the Chaos Recipe is what will really put these teams together and what will shine through in the end. The double beyond on the Elder Underground Seas here, as well as being able to put Bloodlines on every map, is very big for both experience and sustain. And so we can see that they've shaped Graveyard, Pier, Toxic Sewer, Villa, Arachnid Nest, and Wharf, as well as Eldering their underground seas. And so that's a very big step up from most of the other groups. And because they have their Elder Orb, it will be interesting to see if Gucci can farm up the Solstice Vigil on the Winter Orb there. Going on to the next team here, Monkey Squad again, Ventura, Rathalos, Heshla, and Leaf. Again, Rathalos is playing that Isla Righteous Fire build up at 95 there, with the rest of the team sort of lagging behind. So this team is definitely very dependent on Rathalos, who hasn't died yet. I don't expect that he will die anytime soon, but so far it seems like the other three members are just solo farming up to help progress along Rathalos, possibly feed him gear and such, but so far, we haven't seen much of their profiles, and I don't think it's going to be super relevant as we move on into the Rathalos show here. We're not quite sure what map tiers they're within, but they are within depth 225, so they are getting close to that I monster level 83 zone here. Moving on to Team 3, we have Method, of course, Zizarin, Havoc, 616, Steel Mage, and Noogie. And so we do have a bit of their strategy put together. They are within their red tier maps, tiers 11 to 15, and they are within depth 261. So definitely very well progressed now. We have Zizarin as the primary carry, and it has fully fleshed out that Zizarin is the intended person to reach level 100 on that Winter Orb. He is still using those Rampage gloves, which are very nice to see. We have Havoc 616. I believe he's just farming up for the team with that 5-link Winter Orb on the Queen of the Forest. We have Steel Mage farming up the Chaos Recipe on that 5-link Winter Orb as well. And Noogie is actually pushing Stormbrand to its limits with a +2 Tabula. Now that's pretty important because Noogie is their primary Delver, and so he's able to push even further on, even further beyond with that +2 there. They currently reside within their red tier maps consistently, doing maps such as Mud Geyser, Belfry, Waste Pool, and notable shaped maps that they do have are Canyon and Moon Temple. So it will be interesting to see if they have what map they will Elder if they don't already have it. So that'll be something to look forward to in the next few hours, most likely. And last but not least, we have Team Dotenmite here. Again, we've got Rise QT as the primary carry. We've got Waggle as the boss killer. I believe Garotha is actually being a full-on support now. We did see Rise QT map for quite a while. I believe what he said earlier on stream was that it was, oh hey, my friend, yeah, let's map together. But it eventually developed over time to where Garotha gives him quite a few supports, quite a few auras, as well as the curses, and that it has become more beneficial for them both to group up. Now, it will be interesting to see if this is a part of their main strategy, or if they have stolen it in a sense from Team Avengers. Well, that's a little bit on the table, but we do have Carve farming up the currency, and his primary primary job right now is getting the prophecies for the multi-mod. So I believe that'll be for a weapon, but that's yet to be seen. Uh, they do reside within the red tier maps, and they are within depth 191. So that is the lowest out of all the top teams. But they're just looking for their tier 16 progression, needing Waggle to defeat the Shaver to get that Elder Orb. Rain Dog, what are we looking at here for the teams?
So, just a quick note: you should lean in a little more because your threshold is sometimes cutting out.
Oh,
But
okay.
sure, I think one of the most interesting things here is that last time before our cast, we had like a really close between Team Dodam and Team Avenge and Rathalos, and both of those teams went to bed. So after that, we said that Ty and the guys probably would just be catching up massively, and they were like, they just started playing, and they're like according to their XP per hours, they would probably catch up in like 2 hours and overtake them, and that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And this team is super interesting because they're the only team that doesn't have any rips so far, and they have 4 characters at 95 and above. So they're like less prone to just being out of the game. So that's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, which is super nice, is that Ty and Gucci both have opened their profiles, so we're actually able to get a little closer view of what they're up to. And something that's kind of cool that you noted is that they're using the Smite 5 link for the support. So this Smite gives an aura that gives chance to shock, and they're using that with generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this on Gurata yesterday as well, that he was using his 4 link Smite setup. So I'm not sure who is copying who, or good minds think alike or whatever. So and they also seem to be prioritizing a mod on the weapons of Crying as non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage, even though that was nerfed quite significantly. They're still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And Camel has just gotten 1 level since last time, so he's basically just farming currency, chaos recipe, and making items, rolling maps probably. So he's not progressing at all.
Yeah. I mean, I just noticed that Kamel's really just hardly in those maps at all. With his, he streamed for a few minutes earlier today, and he was within very low tier maps, just constantly putting out that chaos recipe. Being the sort of like the background support that the team really needs for those Zana mods, and so it'll be interesting to see how well that pays off in the end. And I think it'll be very well worth it. So.
So yeah, heading over to the next team, Monkey Squad. They still have Wrath going strong at it with his Isla RF build, and they're having very nice XP. I think of the top players, they're currently the ones having the highest XP per hours, about close to 60 million.
Hmm.
Compare that to Thai and Crying that are 50 and 45, and Cicerone and Rice that are 30 and 40. So they're doing something right. I think they really got a good hold of their map pool and rolling good high tier maps and clearing them very efficiently. Something that is a little bit uncertain is if they're actually solo mapping. They might have transitioned Leaf as a support, but we're not sure about that because they're not really streaming or having the profiles open. I'm not sure about that.
Right.
I think one of the big story is the massive catch up of Team Method. When we sort of started our last stream, they were like 3 levels behind at level 92. And we commented that the gear seemed super nice. Like they have everything set up, but they were set back massively on their 2 rips on both Cicerone and Havoc. And now they're just catching massively up.
Hmm.
They, I think, like in the last 6 hours, they progressed from level 92 to level 95. But it seems like they have chosen a bit different strategy. that the Cicerone is mapping without a support as well. They
Yeah.
have
Sorry,
they
go ahead.
have the deep they have the deepest delves. Nugian is really pushing the delve with the +2 tabula. They have actually progressed to 63 now, and hopefully they'll get into some cities, getting some extension on their map pool as well.
Yeah, I was gonna note that I believe it was Rice QT earlier who was saying that not having a support is definitely gonna be a detriment in these like super juiced up maps because all it takes is one Elder map that has double Beyond on it. You get a Host in there and it gets super dangerous. But if you have the Curse bot in there, not only do you have the auras to prevent yourself from taking so much damage, you also have the temporal chains and the enfeeble, which Zizern just doesn't have right now. So it will be interesting to see if that plays a part into any potential rips here. I would say that Team Avengers and Dotamite are definitely much safer because of the duo play there.
Yeah, it looks like their method is running fast, but they're running with really high risk. The same with like the Inquisitor and the Elementalist are much less safe than the Occultist and the Trickster. And
Hmm.
also Nugian using the +2 tabula in those deep delves. That's a really high risk, high reward.
Yep. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's worth balling other six links, but I do believe that Zizaran did farm. So what they did to obtain some of their six links, especially for Zizaran, is they turned marshes and they sold it 3-1 to get residents, and then they just all farmed residents separately, and they got their Dapper Prodigy cards, which gives a six link, and so they just crafted away at that six link for a little bit, and that's how Scissorin was able to obtain his six link. So I know there was a lot of questions about that. He didn't just drop it; he used the cards to target farm for it.
So regarding the what what the Doamite, they have fallen quite behind. Well, not that much. I think Rice estimated that they were like 3 hours behind the leaders. But they're the most well-rested team. They were leading or like very close to the top when they went to bed,
Hmm.
and now they're trying to catch up. As you said, they have transitioned into a full support on Gorada, and I think he shifted out his incandescent heart with this. I don't remember the name of
I think it's
that
called
unique, but
Solaris Lorica. Just makes it so
yeah,
you take
and
less
it
chaos
prevents
damage.
chaos damage from passing through his energy shield. So he's probably full ES now. He got the +1 curse ring, and
Hmm.
he's getting used to mapping together with Rice because he's never played support before.
Hmm.
But he needs to keep up because if it's not close to Rice, he would just die.
Yeah, definitely. It is kind of funny to see these players play together. As a lot of the time, Rise QT will run into the map, and sometimes he'll choose a different path than what he normally does. And so, seeing how the support reacts, and Crying does the same thing. Sometimes he'll pop into the Kavas, and he'll go a different way than what he normally does. So it does keep the support guessing. So if you are playing with that support character, you really want to make sure that you're clearing the map in the exact same way every single time, because chances are you might be leaving your support behind.
So they also mentioned that Vago, I think he's asleep right now or he's getting up soon, and they're hoping that he can take down Shaper so they can get the Shaper orb.
Hmm.
And also he got his Warlord's Mark ring on hit, which is a very nice addition to any build.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely getting those endurance charges is just super nice. Even just getting the leech for those boss fights does make it much safer. Especially as Trickster, he's going to be super safe in these bosses and shouldn't really have any issue.
So another thing that so Car ripped, and I think we have that clip as well. We can show it after
Okay.
this part. And but something that is worth noting is that we are a little bit uncertain about one of the teams, but it seems like two teams are running solo carry with Cicerone and uh, who is the last solo
Rathalos?
carry? Rattlos and Rice and uh, Rice is getting support and also who is the fuck, yeah, and Ty is supporting crying.
Mhm.
So that seems to be two different approaches. So maybe they're satisfied, but with the setup, or maybe they're transitioning one for. I would find it very strange if they're not giving Cicerin a support eventually. I don't think RF benefits the same for support. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's a
Uh,
little less.
I would definitely agree with that. I don't think Rathalos is going to need that support because he is so tanky. All he's going to need from his team is the currency and the gear from everybody. So that includes things like their fusings and everything like that. Just really powering Rathalos up and enabling him. It's a lot less of a, well, he needs a support kind of thing. Whereas I would argue Winter Orb benefits from it greatly.
So, so we also were talking about like maybe looking at some other teams, but basically it seems like there's no other teams that are able to keep up.
Uh,
Grizzly, that sort of resigned yesterday, are
mhm.
still in fifth, and the closest one is Bug Danoff Pump It, and they're level 93, and they're followed by the Sleeping Knights that has their highest one at 90. So they're not really worth looking at.
Well, I would argue that there would be something worth looking at Bogdanov, but they all have their private or their profile set to private, so we can't even see them even if we wanted to, since they are not streaming. And I think that level 90 is just a bit too far away from level 96, so there's not going to be much from the Sleeping Knights. So it is pretty much just these big four teams to see who can take the top three. Any predictions so far?
So the Avengers seem super strong, and I really like their security because they're not an all eggs in one basket team.
Hmm.
Like even though I think they're still like even if they're two top players ripped, they've probably still been third. So they're super strong right now,
Yeah, I
and
definitely
I
agree with that.
and something that like for these longer racers, they're much less rips than for like an 85 race where people really have to push. But when it's this close and people are maybe pushing on the sleep schedule and everything like that, getting trying to do the hardest content and maybe skipping out on a little bit, doing more risky maps, having current less currency, so they might have to run some maps with super hard mods, like you see the Grizzly team doing. The double curse and double extra damage mod, and then accidents just happen, right?
Right. Any other comments on these teams?
So I guess we can have a look at the carve rip.
Yeah. And bring it up here. You see he's in the syndicate hideout here. Definitely super dangerous mobs. Looks like he's not getting that energy shield up because he's burning constantly. Oh no. The stun lock got him. Now is there audio for this clip? Let me check. Oh, there is. I'm just
After
muted. Let's see. Oh no.
oh my god. Oh,
Wait, what?
I got the Elrond on the booms.
Yeah, he
after
definitely did not expect to go down there with the little holy
Fate was
relics,
done.
but
Can you enter my safe house to go? There's a one ring.
just wondering.
I'll just start re-rolling immediately.
Oh no. You know, with this
Okay.
death, it means that he doesn't get the safe house, so really,
Yeah, we don't actually get the audio from the yeah, we maybe do. Sorry.
yeah, I got it. Anything to comment here, or, I mean,
No, the syndicate are super dangerous though, and Carve hasn't really been prioritized for his build, so he's just trying to make you and help his team in any ways he can, and sometimes you rip.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think out of all the members of Team Dotamite, it is actually the best in a sense for Carve to be the one to die. Now, I don't know if I would say the same about Kamel because he's such like the glue that holds everything together with that chaos recipe. But I think again with the same situation, I think out of Team Avengers, Kamel would be the you know the best member to
So
die if you were to choose one out of the team. So I think.
another thing that's a little bit interesting about this is if he started the prophecy chains for the multimod
Mhm.
before this rip, they might have wasted like a massive amount of progress and a massive amount of silver coins.
Oh, I didn't
And
even think of that.
so, and I think Rice talked about that he might actually need to start picking up silver coins, and that would really slow them down as well.
Mhm.
So, I'm not sure about that, but I would just assume if they had a plan for the silver coins and want to do the multi-mod, I would just assume that they already started, right?
Yeah. I mean, most likely. Something that's interesting about Team Avengers is that they all pick up silver coins. Well, Crying doesn't really pick them up. Tie 23, the support does. And so basically, because they're all spamming prophecies together, they're able to seal up those, Plague of Frogs or Reign of, uh, Plague of Rats and Reign of Toads or whatever it is. And they're just able to juice up those maps for Crying, like, pretty much all the time. He does have like most of a tab filled, so he will be pushing XP with that Elder Underground Seas. So,
Yeah, that is super nice. I think we
Mhm.
also have this Nugian clip again. I think we have a big Nugian fan in our Discord who's leaking Nugian clips. And
I think so
yeah,
as well.
we can. It's probably a close rip again from Dell.
4, Bastard 3.
As we said
Am I
earlier,
right?
it's running the
Did I say that?
tabula, right? So it's super
Oh,
dangerous.
right.
Yeah.
Something interesting here to note is that he's not using phasing, and that is something that
Actually,
just
you're
makes you so much
52.
safer in
Yours
these
up
deeper delves. Oh,
They're
wow.
Oh, the break the mega lol.
You're laughing.
Ah! On these cities?
I mean, those volatiles, when you're slowed down, become super deadly,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Rise
He's just,
Actually, no, you're 52. Yours up
and he
there.
runs in and he gets constricted for
they're
90% of his movement speed.
Oh, the break the mega lol.
Definitely
You're
super scary
laughing.
there.
That's like 5% HP.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
just lucky there.
it's interesting to see because a lot of these deaths or a lot of these near rips are like fairly unavoidable. So it's only a matter of time if you keep running into these situations. In my opinion, that at some point you will go down, but that's yet to be
And
seen.
also consider that this doesn't really have any damage modifiers, right? And it's doing this monster
Mhm.
level 80, 81. So if he continues down here, he might. I think it's almost inevitable that he will rip if he continue using a tabula.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, it's just super scary going to these deep delves, especially this early on, in my opinion. We might see other teams starting to go to the left and the right instead of keep going down. Like you mentioned, it just gets scarier and scarier.
I think once they reach the correct monster level, they just go wherever the mod seems reasonable and
Hmm.
towards cities. Because we haven't really seen any progress downwards for the teams after they hit like this kind of monster level, like depth 50, 60, 250, 260.
Yep.
So,
All right. It seems like it's it for the clips. We don't have much content here for the clip section, as most teams haven't ripped, fortunately. So
yeah, we can just go over some of the gear. I think we should, yeah, I think we should go over some of the gear for the players as we
yeah.
normally do, but we can probably make it a little quicker than normal because not much has changed. We can have a look at the
Yep.
respec to probably full energy shield, but we should probably just start. Yeah, this is a good thing.
Yeah, let me bring up Rice QT's profile along with the others. Alright, we'll just go in order here. So again, we have Avengers, Monkey Squad, we have Method, and then Dodomite. Here's the XP graph so far. We have Zizarin with his sleep, and you can see that he's basically getting nothing. And then all of a sudden, at 9 p.m. here, he does shoot way up, way further than all the other streamers. As we mentioned, he did really push from 92 to 95 before really anybody else was able to push super hard. And I don't know what's going on here with some of the XP, but it does seem like he pushed way harder than pretty much everybody else here, almost almost tripling their experience at some times, but that may be due just to you know, the amount of XP you get at those lower levels, if you can even call them that. And now you can see that it's pretty much evened out around now. If I look down at the XP down here, you can see that Crying is getting 70 million, and you know, the other three teams are sort of trailing behind. But you know, something interesting to note is that Team Avengers does have their Elder Orb, so they will be doing that. Quickly looking over Crying's profile, it does look like he's managed to pick up a new wand, as we mentioned in the last one. As well as what you said earlier with the spell damage and non-chaos extra chaos craft here. Just a super nice damage overall. Has lots of cast speed on these wands. Just super nice wands, as we mentioned. Definitely something that they wanted to look to pick up, and so they did. Another couple things that are new that I noticed are the belt. So this makes it so you take less damage from critical strikes and removes chill and freeze when you use a flask. That's a very interesting mod. As well as the extra spell damage, but I don't think it's the damage on this belt that makes it so nice. Also, the near 140 life from this belt is super good, and then this opal ring, man, this opal ring is almost 75 life, with quite a bit of resist to boot and some cast speed. And the reason why a lot of builds like the opal ring is that if you can fix your resistances well enough, you can get that extra elemental damage implicit, making it just super nice overall. It's basically like a passive point and a half in most cases. I don't believe the amulets change at all. So I mean, we can look at the skill tree just real quickly, but pretty much everything was covered in the last one. I don't think there's going to be anything new here. Doesn't look like it. Just you know, more of the same. Anything you want to comment here about Cry?
Not really. He's like 6.4k HP. He has
Yeah.
some energy shield, so
Mhm.
but he has the dodge, right? So that is his main defense. So
Yeah, definitely. I think something that they've managed to pick up in the past day or so is these searching eye jewels, or at least just this one. I do believe that they were crafting jewels for a little bit there, and so it'll be interesting to see if they pick up some more for Crying, or some better ones, since they do have the 2-point jewel socket here. Anything else you'd like to mention?
I think that's good.
Alright.
Let's head on.
To Rathalos here. Definitely a new weapon. As you can see, with the minions deal extra damage, it basically does affect him. And he's always got that trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. I'm not sure how often this activates, but this is definitely just so that they can, just so that Rathalos can affect that elemental equilibrium here. As we mentioned last time, you just want to deal a tiny bit of lightning or cold damage so that they have more resistances to that and less resist to fire. And so it does seem like every time he uses Phase Run or he activates, you know, Orb of Storms or something like that, it does turn on this Blade Vortex, because the socketed spell trigger a socketed spell when you use a skill. Very interesting interaction here, as well as the increased critical strikes. It does mean that he basically always has Elemental Overload as well, so definitely a very smart pickup here by Rathalos. The elemental damage with attacks doesn't really affect him at all, as he is not using attacks, but an interesting choice for the scepter there. Again, the Broken
I do
Crown.
believe it's a 4-second cooldown on triggered socketed spells.
Yeah, so he doesn't really need like 10 Blade Vortex stacks, and it's not really for the damage. It's really just to provide a lot of extra benefit to his character. So that's something to note there. Again, the Broken Crown, just a lot of ES and Chaos. The shield here, I don't believe it's changed, just more energy shield. The boots the same, you know, the belt the same. It's got that Orb of Storms, Curse on a hit, Elemental Weakness, and increased critical strike support. Now this Orb of Storms setup is just so that he can pop it down on the single target here. And it does seem like Rathalos is still running on a 5-link here with the Ink AoE. Will be interesting to see if he moves it up to a 6-link, but it is fairly difficult to you know, get some more supports on this, as the only way you can get a I can't remember which support it is, but the only way to activate it is to use Arcane Surge, so you'd have to like drop a link to use a new one that's slightly better, and so it's a very marginal increase for Righteous Fire here, but it will be interesting to see if they opt for the 6 link at some point. And again, I really do believe that they should divine this chess piece to get the recovered 5% of maximum energy shield up to 6%. Seems like a little bit of a mistake to me, but looking over the rings, again, just the energy shield, resist, the same as yesterday. Looking at the...
Yeah, he's.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, looking at the tree, it doesn't seem like too much has changed. Really just more the same. More or less the same. Got a tiny bit of wands here, or jewels, but really just the same as yesterday. Anything else you'd like to comment here about Rathalos?
I can't quite remember. I think he's gained a little more energy shield. It's about 7.3k energy shield now and 2.2k life. And his chaos rest is 68. I think that's the same as yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a quite tanky character. And he's, as you said earlier, he's probably the one that is most suited to map without any supports.
Definitely. Looking over Tie 23 here, so we do have a bit of a treat with him making his his profile public. It seems like he's got the typical support set up here with the Ephemeral Edge, you know, the shield charge, fortify faster attacks, and he's running that Broken Crown, same as Rathalos with the Vigilant Strike, Immortal Call, increased duration cast when damage taken set up here. So that's really just to give Fortify to Crying with the Vigilant Strike, since he does seem to have, or I would assume that he has the Jewel to make it possible for Vigilant Strike to give Fortify to his allies. Looking at the shield here, we've got a lot of ES. We've got +2 level of Warcry Gems, so it isn't super great, but it is quite a nice shield with almost 300% energy shield here. We've got 3 auras, it seems, or 2 auras, Zealotry and Generosity. Oh wait, no, that's just 1. Just kidding. But it does seem like he may be self-casting Enfeeble himself. In the boots here we have Discipline, the Phase Run, and the increased duration here. And the increased duration is really just to keep up Vol Discipline for longer. Like, you know, if there's any situation in which he expects to take quite a lot of damage, like consistently. And he's just using a very high ES Jewel there. The Crystal Belt is very interesting as it has a super high life roll with, you know, those little bit of extra resistances. Looking at the gloves here, he's got you know, a ton of resists and maybe a little bit 120 energy shield just about. Looking at the gem setup here, it does seem like he's using that Blasphemy, Enfeeble, Temporal Chain, so that definitely does increase the survivability of the group by quite a bit with this. The Enfeeble and the Temporal Chains just making it so difficult for mobs to hit them. And the Enlightened providing a tiny bit of benefit. It will be interesting to see if they can get that up to level 3 though. The big setup that everybody's been wondering about though is the chess piece. We've got Generosity here with... Alright, so we'll start off with Smite first. So Smite, so what Ty will do here is he'll shield charge into a pack, he'll attack with Smite, which makes it so that other enemies are shocked, as well as granting him and his allies, but primarily just crying, the additional lightning damage for duration. You can see there, Aura grants 12 to 220 added lightning damage. It is super nice, and he's using Generosity on top of this to make it so that the added lightning damage that you get from Smite, the little buff there, does apply onto Crying for quite a long time. Soul is being very effective. He's also using Curse on Hit with Elemental Weakness and Frostbite, so if he does really need the single target or just the damage juice, this is what's providing him with that. And then, you know, just a little Flame Dash here. Looking over the rings, we've got the +1 Curse Ring, nothing too special over here. Will be interesting to see if they opt for, you know, a special ball on it, since it is just a power ring, but seems alright to me. The other ring could use a little bit of work, but when you're pushing up the Chaos Recipe so much, you know, there's only so much you can do with the rings. The amulet here is really just life and resist. There's nothing special, even though it is a Shaper amulet. It just seems like it's only used for the rolls here. The flasks, we've got the Silver Flask of Warding, Chemist Silver Flask of Warding. It is fairly important to note, as it does consume 30 of 60 charges rather than 40, and so you're able to use this Silver Flask twice without you know, killing any monsters. It is super nice. The Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, as we've mentioned numerous times, it is just a super high mobility boost. Looking over the Basalt Flask, we've got a Basalt Flask of Dowsing. Now that is just to make it very convenient for the Energy Shield character, as you know, burning does prevent the Energy Shield recharge, as we saw with Carve. And the Silver Stibnite Flask of Heat here, nothing too much to note. And the Bubbling Divine Life Flask of Staunching, so obviously super good there. Any comments about the gear here, Rain Dog?
Not much. Like you can probably comment a little bit on the sword because I seen that's common denominator for another support as well.
Yes. So the sword actually adds quite a bit of energy shield at around like 500 to 600, I think, was how much it added to my support, but it honestly looks like Ty has an insane amount of energy shield here, and this is evident off his chest piece alone. With 500 energy shield on that chest piece, it is super, super nice for the defensives. It does seem like Ty 23 is very defensive, so if the Avengers put themselves in a situation in which, you know, it's super dangerous, it does seem like Ty 23 will be able to walk away fairly unscathed, but you know that's left to be seen. But as you've mentioned before, Rain Dog, you know with a Gucci being such a high level at 95, it does give them a bit of insurance so that if Crying were to die, Ty 23 here could just swap over and you know hang out with Gucci until you know they hit 100.
So, like to comment on that, he has 8,500 ES and 3,500 life. So that's a ridiculous amount
Hmm.
compared to the other guys. His chaos resistance is a little bit lower. It's like 4% plus, but like with that life pool, I think he still would be able to take most of it.
Hmm. Yeah, he would be able to tank most of the chaos damage. He just has to play a little bit further behind. Most of his chaos resist is actually just from his helmet, Broken Crown, providing him with that 57% chaos res. Super, super nice. It'll be interesting to see if
And
he
some
can pick
from
up some more chaos res somewhere
and
else.
so, and some from the life nodes on the top left
Oh,
as
yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah. Up here. Yep, Purity of Flesh. Looking over the passive tree, it does seem like he's just going with a fairly standard aura bot setup here, with the you know the aura knows leadership, influence, sovereign sovereignty, I believe is how it's pronounced. You know, getting all the energy shield nodes along the way with the +1 curse and the hex master over here. Let's see, check out his ascendancy. Fairly stock standard though. Anything to comment here about the passive tree?
Not really. It's he's using elemental equilibrium as well, so he's probably uh, triggering that with his might, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then you sort of get so regarding the generosity, like if it's triggering it with smite, that would give them increased lightning damage, right? So,
Yep.
um, so the added lightning is probably less efficient than the chance to shock, or am I mistaken there?
It could be. I mean, with Smite really giving both the aura as well as the other two curses, Frostbite and Elemental Weakness, I think it kind of evens out, to be honest. But I'm not quite sure how their you know mapping interaction goes as far as what damage is applied first, or if they do all types of damage. But I would assume that you know the Winter Orb is still very, very effective. But I believe that with the Smite here and the Elemental Equilibrium, Ty 23, if he's the first into a pack and he uses Smite, will make it so that you know the Winter Orb itself is just doing way more damage, and I think that's what it really comes down to is that the added lightning, even though it's a little
Oh
bit
no
less
no no no!
effective.
He's actually picked up Avatar of Fire.
Oh, huh.
That's very sneaky. So then his
Wow,
carry gets the full
that's
benefits.
so big brain. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay, so instead of like mitigating his own lightning damage in a sense, all of it's converted to fire, and so he deals no non-fire, and so because Crying and Ty 23 here have a lot of you know things for lightning damage, and then Crying is obviously a lot of cold damage. they do 0 fire damage, and so Ty23 picking up the Avatar Fire, super nice there. Wow, I didn't even notice that.
I didn't either until I looked on his damage calculation and saw there was only fire damage. So. It's a little sneaky point up there together with the leadership aura and
Yeah,
everything.
I didn't even notice. Anything else to comment here?
I think that's the main part of it. He's probably not that much else for him to pick up, I guess. Just getting a little more survivability, and there's like nothing major in his close proximity that I can tell.
Yeah, definitely. Going on to Rise QT here, a lot of the same old with the same boomstick, same helm, the same crit shield, same 25% MS boots. I believe this is a very nice life belt as we mentioned last time. We've got the life and +1 AoE gems on the Fall Stormcall setup here with the gloves, the nice ring, the other nice ring, the nice amulet, with a lot of crit multi there, and then of course the 6th Queen of the Forest. Not much to comment about there. Flasks seem the same. Does seem like everything is 20% for most of the teams. Anything you want to comment here about the gear or no?
We can just note that it's like 5.5k life, 1.7k unreserved mana, and 1.75 energy shield. So he has a lot of different defenses, and it all adds up. And together with his support, with all the curses, he's probably going to be quite tanky as long as he's able to stay close to him.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like the tree is pretty much just same as yesterday, really, or last session. With his next few passive points, most likely just going into the Scion Life Wheel to fill out his tankiness here. Anything you want to comment about the tree?
No, not really.
All right. Well, does seem like that's about it for this session. Thank you, Chip. But
No, if you have a little more time, I think we can have a look at Nugian, because he's
yeah.
been pushing really hard and we haven't really looked at his gear so far.
All right, seems good to me. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, we can definitely answer them. All right, going over the gear here. Pretty nice scepter with the spell damage, the crit, and the cold damage. The helmet here, very nice life and resist, 90 life. The shield giving a lot of life, and some lightning rest, but not a lot of crit. Surprisingly, a little bit of cast speed, so that is a bit nice. It's using the bubonic trails here with a pretty nice jewel. Wow, lots of crit multi definitely, and quite a bit of life. The belt is fairly good. I believe that is I-84 or so with a the tri-res here with the crafted on life. The gloves here for Noogie, just the same old, 86 life, a little bit of res, not much else to talk about there. The 73 life ring, as well as a tiny bit of res. Don't think it needs to be upgraded too much. Same with the other one, is decent amount of chaos res with the 70 life there and a tiny bit of else. The amulet here, again, giving the crit multi and a lot of life, as he doesn't need too much res elsewhere. And as you mentioned, the +2 to socketed duration gems does affect that storm brand, as it is a duration. Super nice for deep delving, but it might not be the best option, going into the super end game, as we've seen. I mean, so many countless times that again and again, Nugian is facing danger, almost dying, and it's only a matter of time before you really run out of time. Is he Inquisitor again? I believe. Yes, he is. Anything? Actually, we'll go over the flask really quick. So he's not using the Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, which is okay, I believe, as he is the team's Delver. Got the Diamond Flask of Reflexes. Kind of strange to put it on the Diamond Flask, but I think it's fine. He's got the Basalt Flask of Warding here, Chemist Basalt Flask of Warding with the perfect roll. Super nice for getting rid of those curses. The Jade Flask of Staunching, and he's got the Seething Divine Life Flask of Staunching. Something interesting from last session is that it seems like everybody's got pretty much 20% quality on all their flasks across the board, which was not something that I could say about the last session. Anything you want to comment about here, Raindog?
when we're looking at his build, he has picked up all the notes behind Minor Matter. So he stays at the 5,000 HP and about 1,000 unreserved mana and about 10k evasion rating, but it's still like fairly squishy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Yeah, he's running Alira, so he's capped. So yeah, it's. I will definitely say that he's, from all of the profiles we looked at so far, is clearly the most likely to die.
Yeah, it does seem like he's run into quite a few situations that put him in peril. I believe these jewel sockets might be able to help him out a tiny bit, but it does seem like he keeps going further and further down, hoping for those cities, for those high tier red maps, but it might just lead to his demise, which would be very unfortunate for Team Method here. Some of the jewels are fairly nice here with the life and onslaught, and then again just a life and all res here on the other one with a little bit of cast speed.
I definitely think he's probably the key part to their progression. Like, if they're not getting the cities and getting the high tier map drops, I don't think they have any chance of catching up.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Anything else you want to comment about the passive tree here?
No, looks like a standard Stormbrand tree, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with some crit and some life.
It does seem pretty stock standard to me. Just some fairly good gear in the Lightning Spire Trap setup here. Yeah, I don't believe anybody else has their Elder Orb at the moment. Definitely people are pushing into those tier 13s there, Kamal, but I don't want to be too much of a snitch, so although that is basically what this is intended for, or well, just to report on the truth, really. Alright.
So Ty, I might want to pick your brain a little bit about the top trending on Reddit.
Oh, yeah, alright.
So
Here
it
we
would
go.
be very interesting to have the perspective of a racer who have chosen not to participate in the 100 race, even though you're probably one of the top tier racers, at least for
Wow.
the 85 race.
Wow. I mean, yeah, so if you haven't heard, this is the top post on the subreddit at the moment. It says a group race to level 100 should have mandatory breaks. Watching sleep-deprived racers grinding for 30 hours, then sleep for 4 hours just to go for another 30 hours. It's now what I call esports. I have two sides to this, and so one side says, it's like a free market. People should be able to play as many hours as they're able to, so as to push on to that 100. But on the other side, you have to consider the health risks here. I think it's not like the most dangerous thing in the world. I mean, if you consider other sports, there's definitely a lot of risk there, and I don't think there's too much, there's too much to speculate about this. It is a little annoying to spend like 20 hours a day playing the game. I think it gets a little tedious after like 4 or 5 days of playing like that. But I mean, I guess if everybody had the same amount of time to play, then uh, it would just be different. I wouldn't say that putting a restriction on playtime would be a good thing. I think that if everybody played the same amount of time, sure, it would be more skill based, but you also get to see a lot of interesting strategies develop as streamers like Rathalos attempt to play as many hours as possible in those higher tier maps, super safe and everything. And so you get to see a lot of these clips, but it is a little concerning that maybe some team in the future could be taking like performance enhancing drugs, but I don't think we'll see anything like that anytime soon. Uh, I think pushing on to 100 is definitely something that shouldn't be promoted in the future, to be honest. I think level 95 is a pretty decent level, but 100 just takes so long that it might push people over their limits, having pushed to
Yeah.
100 in the past, it took me about a week or so, not like playtime, but about a week solo. I mean, being able to play like 17 hours a day, it was over one of my breaks, but I mean, honestly, I felt like I couldn't go outside and I couldn't hang out with friends, which, sounds a little weird from someone who plays video games all the time, but you get to a point where you don't want to play for, this many ridiculous amount of hours. And you can't really practice for a 100 race as well as you can a level 90 race. Even though a level 90 race takes significantly longer than practicing for an 85 or an 80 race, it still is something that you can plan all the way through. I mean, you can make the argument that you can plan all the way for a level 100 race, but you're not going to sit there and practice, to level 100 multiple times. I guess it's just like there's not quite as much refinement. I think if Method wants to do another race like this in the future, it probably shouldn't be to level 100, but that's just a little bit of my opinion.
So I think this length is sort of with the speed of the game at the moment that they're able to do it perhaps in 4 days or something. It's super awkward because
Mhm.
if it was like a 2 week race, it's clearly that they need to get some sleep and have some nice scheduling. And if it's like a 30-hour race, they would be able to do everything in one sitting. And that
Mhm.
would be like similar to endurance racing. There's some marathons that last like super marathons that last 48 hours or car races that last that long. But and like for a week they sort of have to plan their pit stop. They need to stay on top of it. But when you have this sort of in between, it's not either or. Then you sort of really reward this super stay awake behavior.
Mhm. Yeah, we do have Kamal here in the chat, and he has said that they practiced about 40 hours for the race, and it's fairly obvious that other teams did not. Normally, I would disagree, but after seeing a lot of the other teams' performance, it does seem like that is the case. You can definitely tell that Team Dota did practice quite a lot for that Act 1 time, but obviously it didn't really pay off in Act 2, and some of their other strategies, especially their delve progression, were not quite up to par. Same with Team Method, they're pushing on for that early Act 10, but then going straight back into Blood Aqueducts just wasn't doesn't feel like quite the right move, especially since it is very possible to get a sub 3 hour there. Obviously, that was not really their intention almost, but does seem like Team Avengers here did a full Elder Orb and a run to probably about 90 or so. Very interesting builds, and overall, definitely the team in the lead with quite a bit of insurance there with Gucci. Anything else you want to comment here, Raindog?
Yeah, like as you say, I think for my perspective, I feel like Method, if they're hosting, I think they should at least these long races. I think they should require their participant to stream when they're doing this, so there's getting no speculation on if multiple people are using the computer and stuff. I know like chess.com does that, so they require their participants to stream when they're having like their chess tournaments. And uh, it would also be nice information, but basically just to see that the person is awake and alive and not exposing themselves to any health risks.
Well, Well, normally I would agree with you, Raindog. I kind of disagree in the sense that chess is not very demanding on your computer, and so even if you had a PowerPoint slideshow of your chess game, you can't really say the same about your Path of Exile game. For a lot of people, it's not so much a case that they don't want to or they can't or they don't want to or they don't uh, have the heart to turn on their camera. It's more so that they can't stream or they have some sort of strategy that they don't really want to give out. Even though Rathalos can stream or Ventura can stream, really it's just their strategy that they don't really want to give up too much. But I think the biggest flex that a team can do is like God crying is just start stream, keep the communication going and still be rank 1 consistently. So yeah, definitely agree with you
Yeah,
there, Chip. The Act 10 time is maybe like a 20th of the actual like race itself to 100. So I think it's just a ridiculous time goal, to be honest.
yeah. I personally more enjoy like the Act 10 Kitava race more than the 85, because like a 6 hour setting to see one race, it's also quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then you really need colorful commentary. It would be like watching a leg of the Tour de France or something, and it's nice to have in the background if you're interested in it. But like most people not are not sitting down watching the entirety. Like a Kitava game is like an Act 10 Kitava. That's like 2 hours maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's a trend in sport that people are like, in order to keep the attention of people, it's more like cutting down the amount of time people like more action in a shorter amount of time. So I think doing the shorter races would probably gather more interest, and it's more easier to get commentary. It's easier for people to follow it. So, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. Most of the streams that I was watching for that were doing quite a bit of commentary for the race early on, pretty much all have stopped as it's very difficult to keep up with action. 20 hours a day for multiple days here, and it doesn't look like it's gonna change anytime soon. I don't know if I like everybody's advocating for putting in time restrictions for the streamers or players, but I would argue that just not having a race to 100 in the first place would be the best idea here. It just seems like, you know, if there is going to be some sort of restriction, then either there will be some sort of way over it, or that like like it won't be fully supported in a way, and so I don't know. Just seems strange to me. Kamal has said.
So regarding what Camel is saying there,
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting because I come from Dota and I have a lot of friends that play League of Legends, and those games have like completely different origin. Like in League of Legends, Riot is hosting and doing everything, but in Dota we have a lot of like independent small tournaments that are hosted by like group on community. So I'm like the way Camelot hosted, Method is getting into it. We might be able to get closer to the Dota model.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little cool that the community has come together and put these things together, especially with Kamel definitely putting a lot of support into the racing scene. But I don't know, it just seems a little strange to me that the community has to come together. It's not so much, I mean, we do want to come together and put together these races, but it does seem like there should be a little bit of support. I mean, as much as I really like the PoEsports atmosphere, I do really prefer a situation in which anybody can compete. Um, having lots of people or reading what a lot of people say on Reddit is that it just doesn't apply to them. It's like I mean, I guess you could compare it to like a Tour de France or something like that, where obviously you don't expect to get in, but it's a little bit too elitist for most people, and so I guess being able to compete would allow that option for a lot of people to see the difference between them and racers. But I don't know.
And I think like one thing that people don't really know about Path of Exile is that the skill cap is extremely high. People think it's an action RPG. You just hit stuff, right? And like I'm probably one of the fastest guys in my group, and I'm not really good. But when I'm like leveling on my first character in solo self on hardcore,
Hmm.
I'm doing half the time of like proper people like you guys. And like if we compare that, I'm pretty sure I'm able to do the 100 meters in less than twice the time of Usain Bolt. Like for a comparison.
Hmm.
So it's I think it's a lot of people get a little bit almost disheartened by the way people are playing. Like it's so out of this world. Like some people they spend less time playing. They also like some people it takes 1 week to get into maps if they play after
Hmm.
work. So when they see somebody is just doing that in 2.5 hours, it's of course it's impressive, but they feel like they're playing a completely different game.
Definitely. I mean, it is a little sidetracked from the main topic here, but I do agree with that. You see a lot of backlash towards the racing community, but really we're just trying to do our own thing here, really. And there is like sort of this push for going faster, and we definitely did see that with a lot of teams, both in the method race and in the actual trade league itself, with a lot of teams going quite a bit faster than they have in the past. Is pretty fun to be a racer in this time, but like you said, a little disheartening to be a parent or someone who can't play very much, but definitely a little bit sidetracked here. What do you think the fix would be for these level 100 races, or should we even have them in the first place?
I don't think level 100 is very. I think that's something for the league starts and people can push. I think like if they want to make it an esport, I think level 100 is super stupid. I think you need something that can be done in one setting without
Hmm.
people ruining themselves. Like 30 hours is a long time, but I think that's still reasonable.
Hmm.
So whatever level that would take, I think also racing to like something like an end game boss where people can do it earlier but with a higher risk, like a shaper kill. I'm not sure how if you tested that. How what is the fastest shaper kill you can do?
So Zizaran did a private league where it was +2 projectiles, and I believe Ty23 was the one who get first place to kill Shaper. I believe it was 11 hours with the foothill strategy, forming up those orbs, the Harbinger orbs, or yeah, Harbinger and Horizon orbs. But really, it's just like you can't do that quite as much, and so it might be a little different now. But I definitely agree. It would be possible to do within, give it maybe 15 to 16 hours or so. Yeah, and then it was followed by Zizarin, I believe, a little while later. Yeah, seems about 13 and a half hours. Still seems fairly reasonable for me to me at least, is that, if you are to play 14 hours or, to 18 hours, but I think that's perfectly fine. As you mentioned, with the playing 30 hours does seem okay to me. It would be kind of interesting, I guess, to see if there could be a 24-hour race. So it starts at a certain time and it goes on for 24 hours, and then the leaderboard is like locked in a sense, and just to see who can go the farthest. But
So
that
that
might
would be
be.
very similar to what in the cycling they call the 1 hour challenge,
Mhm.
where they basically just on a velodrome and see what is the shortest amount of time you can, the longest amount of distance you can ride in 1 hour, and that would be fairly reasonable as well. So while we have Camel here, sort of a side note, you said you were talking to Chris about support. Are you talking about like the ability to make group found? Are you talking about the balancing of skills? Because we were discussing this a little bit earlier yesterday that we saw different people were using different single target, while Blade Vortex, while Storm Call, and Lightning Spire Trap. So that seems like people have options. We also have people are using different ascendancies. So the ascendancies, even though no people are doing melee, it seems like you have options. But for leveling and for map clear, it seems like Stormbrand and Winter Orb are far superior of anything else. Is
Uh,
like the balance issue the most important thing for an interesting race, or is it the support of like being able to host your custom races and lock people together in teams?
I would definitely argue that it's the support for custom races, as there's not much backing by GGG, and and they don't believe they care about the balance of low level. Yeah. I mean, people are always going to be inclined towards whatever skill performs the best, especially in the racing community, and so you see a lot of hate towards Stormbrand. But if Stormbrand was banned, we would just go on to the next skill, most likely being Arc, with that onslaught being available. And if not, it would be Bane or some other choices here. But you're only really locked into a few skills that are the best, and then the next best, and then the next best. And so it's not so much like they need to buff every skill to be viable in the early game, uh, but it is, as you said, mostly about adding tools to make more races and events more accessible to a broader crowd. Yeah, I do believe it's a little restricted, as we do have to have some restrictions on like who can join the races, so that it's not a huge waste of slots. But it seems a little rude to be like, hey, you need to be this elitist to get in. But that might just be a little bit of my opinion. Uh,
I
I,
might be misremembering this, but I think Chris talked about they were working on an in-game client as well, so people could watch the races in-game and swap to the people who are doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're getting that, that would be a very nice tool for casting. And I know in Dota they have like this in-game client, and then you can actually, if people are registered as broadcasters, you can like swap to the commentary and choose to see what they are seeing and stuff. So that would be a super nice tool if they really want to push this to be more of a common thing that people want to see.
Seems like they are working on it, and so it will be interesting to see racing coming up here. Ziggity has been hammering them about it apparently, but yeah, it will be interesting. Definitely in the last race, saw a lot of flack towards Tie 23 there with people making the comment that it's like watching the Olympics and only hearing that Usain Bolt has smashed the world record. It is somewhat comparable to that, but uh, I mean, there's just not the support at the moment. So being able to have that support would mean great things for the racing community, to say the least. All right. Any other comments here, Raindog?
No, it just the thing you said there was sort of remind me of a sketch of a group. I'm not sure what it's called in English though. Like it's people running in the woods looking for the posts and like trying to figure the shortest route using maps. And then like the crowd is just standing there cheering when they're running into the woods, and then just waiting outside the woods, and somebody comes out, and that's sort of the entire the other race because everything is just off in the darkness.
All right. Well, that seems to be it for this session of the Method PoE newscast. All right. It's been your host, Tech Killer and Raindog. See you in the next one in 11 hours here. Bye, everyone.
Bye.